Liberty in our lifetimes in a free state of our own. That's the vision. That's the dream. We are building it in New Hampshire. I'm Eric Gericke, your host and renegade statesman for the Porcupine Report. Welcome to your source for porcupine news and free-range conversation on matters of liberty. All right, let's hop into the show. Hey there, all you porcupines, you. This is, as always, your host, your renegade statesman, your executive director for the New Hampshire Free State Project, Eric Gericke, coming to you for episode 91 of the Porcupine Report. As we record this, it is the first week of December. And you know what? I'm pretty proud for all they say about New Hampshire and all the snow that we get. I'm here in southern New Hampshire, and we are the first week of December. We're getting our first real blizzard. The snow's coming down on us pretty hard right now as we record this. But holding off to December, I know folks up in more northern New Hampshire, like we've been getting snow for a while, Eric. But down in southern New Hampshire, we've held off until December. I think that's a respectable amount of time to hold off on the major snow. So after this, I'm going to be going out and shoveling my driveway. But that's New Hampshire, and you know, Granite Staters and Free Staters, we're all made of sterner stuff, and we know how to endure a winter. And we tend to do it with good people, so that makes it all the better. All right, before we get into today's show, of course, I want to remind you, we do bring you a new episode every single Wednesday at 7 o'clock p.m. This is episode 91, and we broadcast on the Free State Project social media channels, X, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, and many of your favorite podcasting apps. Wherever you're consuming the show, it does do me a great service. I personally really appreciate it if you will like or comment, share, retweet, whatever makes sense for the platform that you're on, so that other people can discover the show and join our ever-growing audience. And anyway, so thank you in advance for doing that. I really do appreciate it. And of course, I want to tell you about our sponsor for the Porcupine Report, which is the very appropriately named Porcupine Coffee Roasting. I do believe that is a very good cup of coffee from a private membership association owned and operated by Free Staters right here in the Free State. They have only specialty grade beans that they import from all around the world, and they roast them right here in New Hampshire, and they ship them out to you wherever you are. You could be in the least free state in America. Of course, I'm talking about you, those of you who are still in New York State, number dead last for freedom. You could be in the least free state in America, and they can ship Porcupine coffee roasting products right to you, and you can get that nice taste of caffeine and freedom to start your day. So here's the deal we got going on with them at Porcupine Coffee Roasting. If you go to porcupinecoffeeroasting.com and use our discount code PORKREPORT, you can take 15% off of individual products, and you're supporting a great private membership association. You're getting great coffee, and you are supporting this very program, which we appreciate very much. So go to porcupinecoffeeroasting.com, use discount code PORKREPORT for 15% off individual orders, and have a little bit of that free state spirit start you off each day, wherever you are. So, all right. Thank you to our sponsor. And of course, the other place I'd like you to go, I want to say thank you to our, every single week, I'm telling you, there's more and more patrons for the Free State Project signing up. We do have a goal of reaching 270 Porcupine patrons by the end of the year. And right now we are at 255. So that means we only need 15 more. And I hope if you're not already an existing patron, that we can count you in. When you become a patron at fsp.org/give, which you can do for as little as $10 a month or $100 a year, not only will you get this awesome Porcupine patron lapel pin shipped right to you with a personal thank you card handwritten by me, you get access to a lot of benefits. Those patron pins give you special perks at Free State Project events. You get access to the Porcupine Patron official signal group. You get access to our monthly conference calls and our quarterly print newsletter. In fact, I just finished kind of drafting up a first draft of the Porcupine patron newsletter that will be going out to those 255 mailboxes this week, if all goes well. So all kinds of benefits, including discounts and complimentary tickets for events as you kind of scale up your patron level. You can learn all about that at fsp.org/give. And I really appreciate all of our patrons for supporting our year-round mission at the Free State Project as we work to promote, outreach, invite, welcome, and engage with liberty lovers at every step of their journey, from wherever they are out there, all the way to arriving here to help us build the Free State. So we couldn't do it without our patrons and without our volunteers. So thank you to our patrons. Thank you to our volunteers for making all of this year-round work possible. And of course, every donation to the Free State Project is 100% tax deductible. We are a 501c3 nonprofit educational organization, and we are the most effective libertarian strategy ever tried. So you get to donate to the most effective libertarian strategy ever tried, and you get to write it off on your taxes. That's like a win-win all around. So go to fsp.org/give before the end of the year and help us fund next year's budget. I really do appreciate it. And while you're there, sign up for the weekly Free State Project newsletter. I do write it myself with the help of many volunteers and members of our team. It's apparently like the water cooler talk around the Free State movement. People are always checking in. Did you read the recent Free State Project newsletter of all the great news, the things that are going on, and how much progressives are whining about all the liberty that keeps winning? Well, you need to get that. Sign up for it at fsp.org and get that weekly newsletter right to you. And of course, also, as we recently announced, tickets are now on sale for the 2026 New Hampshire Liberty Forum. That's going to be March 5th through the 8th. And you can get your tickets for that at nhlibertyforum.com. We've already been announcing several speakers for next year. The theme is going to be Build Freedom, because this is a conference not for people who are just complaining about tyranny. This is for people who are interested in actually building solutions and building freedom. One of our first main stage speakers that we've announced is the economist Bob Murphy of the Mises Institute. And we're also bringing back our this year, it's called the Liberty in Practice Dialogue Series, which is in-depth small group discussions on particular topics led and facilitated by experienced freedom builders. I'm looking forward to Jay Noon from right here in the Free State of New Hampshire is going to be leading a dialogue on how we raise the next generation to be competent and self-reliant, because of course, competent and self-reliant people don't vote to grow the welfare state. They just know how to take care of themselves and to help their neighbors. And we're announcing now, I'm very excited, I'll be leading a dialogue on the topic of Greater New Hampshire, why Maine's 2nd Congressional District should break away and join New Hampshire to form a super free state. And what are the practical steps to get there? So that's going to be a fun one. I've been floating that idea for a while, and enough people in Maine keep asking me about it. So I figure they should come join us at the New Hampshire Liberty Forum. And let's talk about how we actually make practical steps towards something like that happening. So a lot of great topics will be happening at the New Hampshire Liberty Forum. Get your tickets, nhlibertyforum.com, and a discount code for you as a viewer of this program. Use our code PORKREPORT when you're purchasing your tickets for the New Hampshire Liberty Forum and take 5% off the ticket price. So that's a thank you from me to you for being a viewer of our program. All right. Those are the announcements I want to get out of the way. Let's get into our conversation for today's episode, which is I'm looking forward to welcoming back a frequent guest to the show, but it actually has been a little while since we've had a check-in on the program. And our guest today is the President Emeritus of the Free State Project, the current chairman of the board of directors of the Free State Project. She is someone who I think is pretty rightfully regarded as someone who kept the Free State Project alive for many years when we're kind of going through this transition phase, after ensuring that she was in charge when the Free State Project hit the 20,000 signers for the Free State Project Pledge. She got that across the finish line, and she has been helping to chart a course for the Free State Project in the many years since, and that's been 10 years since. She's a real groundbreaker for the Free State Project. And, I think I once before I ever thought about taking this job and joining the Free State Project, I think on my old podcast, I once referred to as one of the most interesting people in the world. She's lived quite an interesting life. Her name is Carla Gericke. Carla, welcome back to the Porcupine Report.
Hey, Eric, thank you so much. Thanks for that great introduction. I was just thinking as you were talking, I too am going to do a Liberty dialogue series, and I was very torn because Jason Sorens, who's leading it, I believe, had reached out and he was like, hey, what do you want to do? And I thought, well, I'm going to ask him what he thinks I should do, because sometimes I have interesting ideas, and I wanted to see what other things, and he sent me a list and they were all great, and I kind of wanted to do them all. And one was, can libertarians support MAHA? So that one kind of attracted me, and I was like, oh, I think I'm going to do that. And then I mulled a little longer, and then I decided what I'm going to do is a dialogue series. So I want folks back home to come with the answers. But the question is, what should Free Staters be measuring in New Hampshire? And I think that can really set a tone, or at least I hope will set a tone for kind of where we go next, right? They say history is written by the victors. I think we have won the state of New Hampshire, and if we can get more reinforcements, of course, and maybe get Maine into the mix, and I would love to talk to you about that a little bit, then, how we go about this and what we prize and pride and what we're driving towards, because once you're measuring things, you're figuring out how to get there, right? So it's a little bit of a goal setting hack for us as a movement here on the ground. Where do we go next?
Yeah, well, and I think that's great. I'll look. Hopefully, maybe I can. Who knows? There's going to be so many things going on. I hope that's a dialogue that I can attend. It sounds like something I get a lot of value out of. So I'm trying to figure it every day, like what are the right benchmarks for us to be measuring, and not just patrons and newsletters signups. So these are all great things, but like what are the measurements for New Hampshire becoming freer? Because I you say that we've won New Hampshire, and I kind of feel like we're winning New Hampshire, but I am always very conscious of the fact that, like, I don't know, maybe it's just I remember in Maine what one bad election did and the whole trajectory of the state changing, oftentimes just by a few hundred votes scattered around, across the state in a few legislative districts. And suddenly in 2018, Maine goes from being on an upsurge towards freedom, from being like right in the middle of the pack of like the freedom in the 50 states, to now being, after the course of the next 8 years of total one party domination of the state, from kind of the more progressive statist side of things, being near the bottom of the pack in terms of freedom. And so I know Liberty's winning in New Hampshire, but I'm also very conscious of, if we don't continue kind of building coalitions with native Granite Staters who share our values, and if we don't continue doing outreach and bringing more people in to reinforce the live free or die spirit that's here. I mean, I think the numbers show that in mass, migration to New Hampshire is actually making the state more right-leaning, but you never totally know what all the people moving in from, Massachusetts and Maine and Vermont, who aren't coming specifically for the Free State Project, what kind of politics they're bringing with them. So all the more reason we've got to double down on our efforts.
Right. No, absolutely. And, you are representing the organization, and I'm actually talking more broadly, really, just, as we look to, hey, we're building this Liberty enclave here, what, and some of it could be weird and quirky stuff. I mean, I'm down with, measuring how many sugar shacks we have, or how many independent brewers we have, because of course, Free Staters helped, to expand the nano brewery laws. How many gun manufacturers do we have, and can we get more? So kind of some stuff that is more political, sure, but business oriented, culturally oriented, socially oriented, and just maybe quirky and interesting, which will also give us more content, right? I was online because, of course, I wear many hats, which is why my hair is so weird. Oh, no, I'm kidding. But one of the hats, of course, is Porcupine Real Estate, right? And trying to help more people settle here. And even there, maybe we could be tracking housing market better, for folks to sort of get a soundbite. But like I was online just messing around the other day, and I noticed, all the weirdest thing in New Hampshire videos have like millions of views. And I was like, okay, we could be making content like that is Free Stater focused, because our interests are kind of, maybe a little unusual, but it could be good hooks, right, to get more and more people interested in what we're doing up here. And I personally really, really love this Maine expansion, or New Hampshire expansion, I suppose, or Maine annexation plan you have going on. So I'm very much looking forward to that talk as well.
Yeah, and I do want to clarify for anyone listening. I want to clarify that this is my own personal like pet project. This is not like an official position of the Free State Project. I know some Free Staters who, and I hope they come to the dialogue. The ones who are skeptical of it. But the idea is right, and I will admit part of it is my own personal just sense of loyalty and obligation to the people of Maine that I left behind, and like trying to like find what is a plan B. I mean, some of these people can move and join us, but some of them say I just have so much pride in where they are, and they're so like they've got such deep roots in the land where they are that it's like they're going to go down with the ship if that's what it is. But
well, I mean, from the start, obviously, people know I've done a lot of independence work over the years, and also have to clarify that's also not the Free State Project hat, right? Which in some ways, can I just, make a note here? The reason we even have to explain these things this way is a statist absurdism. It is the fragmentation of the psyche through creating all these different rules of how you're supposed to operate, which forces us as humans to be like, now I have to half pretend to do this or that, right? Thereby sort of breaking our authentic wholeness. So it's super annoying. And I want people to understand that, because it is a statist construct that forces us into these things. So be that as it may, with the independence work, people get upset about that too. But as you say, it's just a conversation, right? Like 10 years ago, people were like, don't bring these bills to the table. But we have over the years. And, in 2023, I worked to introduce a secession bill that was actually tied to the federal debt, right? And we said, hey, if the federal debt reaches 40 trillion, then we can put something on the ballot for a constitutional amendment to say New Hampshire can peaceably go their own way. And at the time, we thought that 40 trillion gave us about 10 years road, runway. We're at 38 trillion within 2 years. We're going to circumvent that or surpass that 40 trillion probably by next year. And so while I'm an optimist, I'm really someone who thinks, I love living in New Hampshire. I think it's the best decision I made. I love going on, the LLMs and be like, validate my decision to move to New Hampshire with, 20 good arguments. And it's always like, yep. If you love freedom, there really isn't a better place to be. So,
well, and it does seem to me that, you look at the debt of these levels and you look at other things going on. Like, I think it was, what's the Bank of America? Bank of America is just recommending for the first time that like people keep up to 4% of their savings in Bitcoin. Like, this is one of the largest banks in America, and like they're suddenly like, these are not votes of like as a kind of a someone who owns a little bit of Bitcoin. Like, I'm excited for that. I think, oh great, it means that maybe there'll be more demand and the price will go up. And but as a vote of confidence in the U.S. dollar, what you see happening in gold markets, silver markets, what you see happening with Bitcoin, and a lot of big institutions starting to kind of bring this into their portfolios. You got to wonder, I mean, how much more time is this dollar system going to hang on for? Particularly
I mean, I don't think it's looking good, to be honest. It maybe, I always used to say, God, I don't want to end up like Lou Rockwell, right? In the original Gold Bugs, who, from 73 have been saying, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, right? But now, of course, we've watched gold rise to the extent where someone like me, who kept a diversified portfolio with Bitcoin and crypto, but gold and silver, like a good girl, like I was like, no, I know about sound money too, right? And to actually see all of those asset classes go up. And also, real estate in New Hampshire. It is a scarce commodity. New Hampshire will be the most libertarian place geographically in the world for us as libertarians to live. And so get in early on Switzerland, right? Like, I feel like I've been telling people this for close to 20 years, and pretty much everything that's been predicted by early Free Staters has come to pass. Now, we didn't see the COVID play in that way. We saw the tyrannical authoritarianism, right? That sort of control that people are worried about. But, I'm actually at the stage where I was like, we could probably make a pretty good documentary that is like, what did they call them? The 15-mile cities, right? Is that what they are? Around geographic areas. I was like, I'm pretty sure every place in New Hampshire within 15 minutes is just awesome. You're going to have a lake, you're going to have a forest, you're going to have well, maybe not in the North Country, you might not have a grocery store, right? But up there, they'll have to make them bigger too. And of course, some of these suggestions and some of these things that they tease out is a way to sort of control the narrative and to control the fear factor in people. So I want to remain sort of optimistic that what we're doing here, to your point, is we're building, right? Like, we are building the solutions.
Right.
And again, when I go in and I'm like, hey, Grok, give me like the top 10 things someone, with this flavor of interests and values should be doing, it'll be like, hey, have you checked out the Free State Project? So
yeah, and we don't know when the next crisis will happen. And but we do know that we've lived through several crises, and they happen. And when they happen, if you're not prepared, it's very scary. If you are prepared and you're in community with good people that you can kind of like, that you've built some community resiliency with, like we're building here in New Hampshire, then you're ready for it. And then you can seize the moment, right? What are the, Rahm Emanuel said, never let a good crisis go to waste. I mean, when the dollar crisis happens, I think one day it will. I mean, maybe that's suddenly when kind of ideas. Now, I'm not a proponent of secession like you are, Carla, but I do want to restore kind of the 10th Amendment kind of balance of power to the state situation. But who knows? Maybe the whole U.S. federal government just dissolves one day, like happened in the Soviet Union, because it becomes so insolvent. And then suddenly we find ourselves independent by default. And then we're ready. But in New Hampshire, we'll be ready to go for that. And of course, back to what we were saying before about Maine, this idea, I just want to complete the loop here. The idea of bringing in kind of rural Maine, the 2nd District of Maine, I think this probably sounds like a crazy idea to people who haven't heard these conversations going on around the country. But you have this conversation happening in Eastern Oregon with the Greater Idaho movement. You've got Virginia and West Virginia having this conversation with Democrats taking control of Virginia again, and a lot of these Western Virginia counties being invited to make the hop over to West Virginia. And for Maine, I just know like how freedom loving the people of rural Maine are, and yet they're just politically dominated by the greater Portland area, which has accumulated all the political power in the state. And talk about like having like a super free state. Like, if you could bring in the half of Maine that is in fact freedom loving, and then and far away from Massachusetts compared to some of these other things, the people who are concerned about kind of the Massachusetts encroachments into New Hampshire will find we'll have tons of reinforcements to make sure that we don't mass up New Hampshire through through political encroachment, at least for quite some time, as we keep reinforcing here. So anyway, that'll be part of the pitch at the dialogue. We'll see kind of what people have to say about it. But Carla, anything you want to say about that? And then there's a video I wanted to kind of show our audience and get their reactions on. But before we do that, like anything you want to?
No, let's take a look at the video.
Okay, so all right, let me set the stage. So this video, it's about a minute long. It went super viral on our social media when we found it. I want to give credit to one of our Porcupine patrons. I don't think he wants to be named, but it was a member of our Porcupine patron community, which of course all of you can be in for $10 a month or $100 a year at fsp.org/give. Anyway, he found this video of this New Hampshire Democrat messaging conference, and it was a conference call. And one of the participants went on a bit of a rant complaining about Free Staters, and I thought it was very revealing what she had to complain about. So let's listen to the video.
I was just picking up on the Free Staters, and they come into the town, they get their job, they get a job in town, they volunteer for all of the and once we have the one family come in and everyone's like, oh, they're a Free Stater, and then another family comes in, and then the third family comes in, and they're like, aren't they such a nice family? And it's like, oh, don't you recognize them? And the method is the same, it's identical, but they're such nice neighbors, and they're so good, and they're so nice. It's like, but have you talked to them about their politics?
But if you talk to them about their politics, they're the nicest people. But
Carla, I thought it was so revealing that the complaints were that Free Staters come and they work jobs and they volunteer in the community, and people think they're nice families and good neighbors. How dare they? How dare they?
That's the worst they can say about us. But you know, it is an interesting tell a little bit. So what struck me there is how they seem to not believe actions, which is such a weird way to navigate through the world, right? So they're ascribing intentions to being a good neighbor, and they're like, you're a good neighbor because you're a bad person. And it's like, no, I'm a good neighbor because I don't believe I should steal from my neighbors so that I can slack off. Like, I literally help, you know, the neighbors on my street who are a bunch of elderly ladies who just today, you know, her water pipe broke, and it was like 2 hours of helping with that sort of stuff. So it is literally that we are good neighbors. And in New Hampshire, you have to be. This is the kind of state where you do want to know who lives next door to you. You do want to go check in after a storm. Maybe the power goes out, who has a generator on the block, you know, all of those things. And so it's this balance between the live and let live, and, you know, live free or die, but know your neighbors.
Well, and looking at that conference call, like, I just can't help, and maybe I'm projecting a little bit, but I just can't help but think and wonder how many people on that conference call were the kind of neighbors who just a few years ago would have been calling and snitching on their neighbors for not, like, following COVID guidance, for not wearing a mask, or not having a COVID vaccine. Like, and so to me, it makes perfect sense why they would be frustrated that other freedom-loving Granite Staters think that the Free Staters moving in are better neighbors than they are. Right? Because we're the folks that we're bringing we don't believe in kind of relying on these governmental institutions to fix our problems for us and fix community problems. We'll roll up our sleeves and we'll go help. I'm always so impressed by, like, what's been built by, you talk about it all the time, Carla, with We Heart West in West Manchester, of, like, the problems that government has failed to address, just, you know, but Free Staters and native Granite Staters just rolling up their sleeves and say, hey, we'll clean up the park. We'll fill the pothole. We'll do what needs to be done.
Yeah. And also, having been here long enough now, you know, I was doing this MLX, my living experiment, over the course of this year on X, right? Where every day I've been doing an X Live. And it occurred to me, I was, just kind of freestyling it for the year. So no pressure to just kind of get a sense for my patter, I suppose. And I realized I was talking about life in the Free State, right? So there's sort of different stages, I think, to the cell, right? Like your job is to go find those people who are fired up and, are ready to hit the ground running. Asking people to move is a big ask. That is unsettling. A lot of people do hit the ground running, or they do for a little while, and then they're like, oh, I have to figure out my doctor, my dentist. How do I get here? How do I transfer this, right? But then, someone like me who's been here since 2008, so for 18 years, I'm a Free Stater, but I just am a Granite Stater who lives here and loves my life, right? And so it's sort of like you're just living your life in liberty, if that makes sense, right? So what are my principles? What am I excited about? What do I care about? And where can I make a difference? And so for me, for next year, I'm actually kind of looking at it as hyper-localism. So you mentioned the park, right? So my husband serves on the parks board. I walk the dogs there at least, 3 times a week. We do keep it clean and shiny, make sure, homeless people don't move in, although compared to many other states, we don't have as serious a problem. And especially now that the opioid crisis seems to have, killed it seems to have settled down or settled into something different. So we don't see as many camps. But my point is, we've actually also learned over the years to work with the parts of government that do work, right? So here in Manchester, we have an app that you can drop tickets on to the city. And because they know we're Free Staters, they do the tickets first because they don't want to deal with any of the crap that might come with, sitting on it for too long. Or you actually know the people who are doing the work because they're parks and one of them serves on a park board with you or whatever. So the longer you integrate here, the less it is a dynamic of everyone's your enemy and no one likes us, right? Because that isn't really my lived truth anymore at this stage. We have beefs, yes, with the Democrats, and they've come out and been pretty nasty. But, let's say in these next midterms, the state sort of changes its flavor a little bit. As libertarians, we can still get things done. We can still work on issues. We could still defend the guard. We could work on nuclear, maybe. That might be interesting to see, but I think maybe we could work on things like overhauling open government and transparency laws, so it's
right. It's about loyalty to ideas, not to political machines. And, and I think a good liberty lover uses whatever political machine is available if politics is the path you want to be on to advance the ideas, but you don't sell your soul to the political machine. That's the mistake some people make.
Yeah, and I do think, I have deep admiration for Ron Paul, Dr. No, of course. We see what's happening to Massey with Trump at the moment, Rand Paul, who we would love to get to come, out for one of our events next year. It sort of seems like the libertarian side has fallen a little out of favor with wherever Trump is heading this week, including, bombing Venezuela or something. Yeah. But, we shouldn't forget that our ideas are principled, and it's hard in politics to stay principled for a long time. It is kind of poisonous. I've seen it happen with the way some of us even talk about, issues now. And of course, I think the internet and the echo chambers and all of that stuff is also contributing significantly. But here in New Hampshire, it's a little bit of a different thing. I feel like it's something special. It definitely is unique. It is the most successful liberty movement in the world, and it's like a great place to live. I'm sort of at the stage, I would never do this, of course, but I've had neighbors or people I've known now, who are born and raised 6th gen and whatever, and they keep being like, Carla, can you guys stop telling everyone how great it is here?
Sorry, that's the job.
Yeah. And then I was going to add with that sort of hyper localism idea. I live on the west side of Manchester. Manchester, of course, for folks listening, is our biggest city and has about 120,000 people. It's fairly centrally located, about an hour from Boston, 10 minutes to the airport, an hour from the North Country, 2 hours from Montreal. We all forget we do have a fabulous world-class, very international French-feeling city that is, just a hop, skip, and a jump from here as well. And so with that hyper-localism, I'm also going to focus a lot of my attention on the Quill, which is one of our clubhouses here in the Free State. So it's been one of my great pleasures to actually see the development of all these clubs over time. So the Quill, I was probably the second person who was ever there. It was before it was the Quill. We were like talking about, we're going to put in a vestibule here and we're going to take down the cornerstone signage, which was the previous owners, and that all of that stuff. And now, of course, we have the Pine in the North Country. We have the Shell out on the Free Coast. We have the Praxium, who no one talks about, but it does exist. The Warehouse over here in Weir. We have, who am I missing?
The Pine up in Lancaster.
I think, okay, and the Pine in Lancaster, the Prickle in Concord. So anyway, so many that we can't even remember them all anymore. So that's a thing. But here with the Quill, we're putting in a podcast studio. So that's supposed to encourage more people to create content, because I do think that is how we're going to have to not game the system, but there's that organic thing that has become incredibly hard online. It's very hard to generate organic growth anymore because everyone is in the business of engagement and paying for it, right? Paying for ads, paying for engagement, and all of that. So I'm hopeful if we create more content, the AIO, so the AI, like SEO, search engine optimization, there is AI optimization, and you can do that through creating more podcast kind of content. But also, we have the most interesting people who are Free Staters. Like every time I meet someone, I'm like, what? That's like amazing, Like people are building bizarre things in their garages that might, and like might make free energy for everyone. We have investors. We have obviously a huge crypto community. So really, I think it's time for us to broadcast more. Like that's how I'm thinking about it. It's kind of that, no one can stop the signal, Mel, like that.
Well, we've got this one podcast that is every Wednesday at 7:00 p.m. But there's other nights of the week, and if we have good content creators producing stuff, maybe we should get more on the Free State Project channels. And I know that Carla, you have a weekly show that I think recently went through a transition of Manch Talk, but now it's the Independence. And of course, people can find this if they're subscribed to the Free State Project newsletter. The new episode is there in the newsletter every single week. So they should be subscribed to the newsletter, but they should also follow you on YouTube and all that. You want to tell folks about your weekly show?
Yeah, so it's called The Independence, as you say. It took me a while to decide about the name. Of course, my website, carlagericke.com, is called The Art of Independence. People might start to see a theme here. So my mission in life is to help people claim self-ownership and to really figure out how they can be independent for themselves, right? So that's that sort of growth mindset, lifestyle side of it. But then the show is, as you said, spun off from Manch Talk. Manch Talk was a show that I did with Tammy Simmons, who was a 2-term state rep, who used to live in Manchester. Now they're out on one of the fabulous lakes we have here, which of course,
I hear she's doing great work kind of building up the lake region community, and she's really involved there. So shout out to Tammy. I hope she's doing awesome.
Nice. And so she and I had the show. It was her show. I became second chair. And then as she left Manchester, I kind of took it over. And then I wanted to give it sort of a new flavor. Now here, candidly, if someone's watching this, I hope our enemies aren't, but I mean, here's kind of my thinking, right? Like, I do want to bring the independence talk a little bit more into the mix. We're looking at 250-year anniversary next year. I think that's going to give us some historic things to talk about. But I also think the federal government is entirely out of control, and we are in big trouble with the national debt. I mean, that is just a reality they cannot hide anymore. So I want to see if we, as Free Staters or liberty aligned people, and Free Stater now means anyone in New Hampshire who's like, I'm a Free Stater, right? And they need to sign the pledge. We want their information. We want ways to be able to communicate with them. But I want us to think about the undeclareds of New Hampshire as part of our group and target group, right? So we have focused, we tend to work, it depends who's in power, right? But we've had Republicans in the corner office in the Senate and the House now for a long time. So we've gotten a little bit of a Republican flavor, but the numbers are the following. Card-carrying Republicans in New Hampshire are 29%. Card-carrying Democrats are 26%. That was the last numbers the LLM gave me. I thought that had flipped from what I remembered, but let's say they're both in the under 30 range, right? That leaves 40%, the biggest number, for us. And so I want people to mindfully start to think, how do we develop the brand of Free Staters are good neighbors? Because that's a hard one to take down. You live your principles, so you're not just saying it, you're actually showing up, right? Like, that's part of it too, right? You can't pretend to be good. You actually have to be good, right? And so, so I think this good neighbors idea, what is a Free Stater, creating content and podcasts and stuff. I want to bring both the OGs in, but also have just classes and discussions and things. Maybe I'll steal some of Dennis's programming from the Inn. That would be another one we should mention. Of course, the Independence Inn over in Stratford. But I think, we should be thinking about what is a Free Stater. So we're talking about what is a Free Stater so that more people are talking about, am I a Free Stater? Am I not a Free Stater? Do I want to be a Free Stater? Do I want to be something else? And as that's happening, we're sort of capturing them under this independence with a TS, but I like the fact that you can't tell which one I'm saying, umbrella, as we build out a list to be able to really reach people to show up, because that's the biggest shift, I think, in politics that's happened over the last decade. Is they talk about the internet being democratizing, but really what it is mobilizing. And if you can mobilize large groups of people, that suddenly gives you that's a lot of power. And we saw it, it started with BLM. Well, actually, it started with the Tea Party and Occupy. And then it was the BLM stuff. And then, during the freedom marches, during COVID mania and the lockdowns, so we've seen this. And now, of course, with these no kings, only queens. No kings, only queens, rallies. So, I do think we need to think strategically about how do we reach the people on the ground. So I'm hopeful I'm a Free Stater sort of conversations and stuff, and not running away from it, right? Like, I know so many people who are like, yeah, don't mention my name. And I'm like, you're going to have to step up. That is part of being a Free Stater. Free Stater is being brave and courageous and stepping up. It's we got to do.
I think the fact that our statist adversaries are at the point where they are upset that the Free Stater label has become associated with good neighbors and good families, like, that's a very good place to be. And it does show that the Free Stater brand over time, as the builders and doers and the people who, there could be some very loud people who have raised a stink in the past and maybe kind of gave people a bad taste in their mouth. But the vast majority of thousands and thousands of people who've come here and who've built things and who've contributed to their communities. Those are the sustaining reputations for the Free Stater brand that is built over time. And we all get to represent that in our own way. And I think that we should own it. And I think that your point there is very well taken. I do want to make sure we do mention, I know this, there's some new mover potlucks taking place this weekend. I want to mention first, I know this Saturday, the Bardo Farm Upper Valley new mover potluck is having a Yankee swap. So you can find out more about that on the Free State Project calendar at fsp.org. But Carla, I know that you have stepped in and you are now hosting the monthly New Movers Potluck at the Quill. And I will say, I know a very good friend of mine from Maine, who's one of the top liberty activists, is bringing his family this Friday. So I hope that we can sell him on how great our community is. And
yeah, I mean, I'm so excited. So we did, and I think there were several in different regions, which of course is also a sign of growth, right? So maybe 5 years ago, we had like one Quill Friendsgiving, and there'd be like 40, 50 people. Now we have maybe 3 or 4 across the state. We had 30 plus people at the one at the Quill over Thanksgiving. And it was remarkable because there were 5 people I'd never met before, new people who were in town or just looking for something and found us, which was amazing. People who want to join as members of the Quill. But I'll be taking over New Movers Party. It is the longest running New Movers Party in the state. People get a little New Movers bag. It's a really good entry point, and also to help them to help people with those networks. Friday nights is just a potluck. I didn't come up with a theme. January's actually, I was thinking, because New Year's Day, I believe, is the Thursday. So the New Movers would be on the Friday, and it's always the first Friday of the month. And so I was thinking maybe I'll just make the theme slow jam, and then anyone can bring anything that has anything to do with jam. That is my plan currently, but don't quote me on that. So yes, this Friday, doors open 6:30, 7 to 10 p.m. It's open to everyone to come check out the community center. Bring a dish if you can. It's a mingle, give it announcements, all of that. And then on Saturday, actually at the Quill from 11:30 to 1 p.m. This is something I used to run years ago, but Jeremy Olson runs it now, is MVP, and that's Merrimack Valley Porcupines. That gets between like 12 and 20 people usually. Smaller, but very strategic. So people who are working on the bills that are coming up, right? We have a lot of it's like the holiday season. I don't know about your dance card, but I have like 14 Christmas parties over the next, it's just a lot is happening. And so it's Christmas and all of that. And then it's like, you think, I could just coast into the new year. It's cold. We could just huddle. But no. Then the legislative session starts, and then it's just balls to the walls and up at the State House and rallies and cries for help and new bills. And, I have 4 or 5 bills that I'm shepherding. So it's going to be frothy, as it usually is.
Always a lot going on in the Free State. And it's always like, it's generally like steps in the right direction rather than trying to avoid backsliding, away from freedom, like in so many other states. So
backsliding, or also just actually feeling as if your time is productive, right? Mm-hmm. I was up doing a Brownstone Institute supper club maybe 2-3 months ago, and I met a charming, I'm going to call him a kid. He was maybe 25, 26. Gentleman who was running, I believe he was actually running Libertarian, so the worst of them, right? For something in his town. And I was like, kiddo, move to New Hampshire. You can actually win in 2 years, So, the one thing I am a little worried about for New Hampshire is whether we've done such a good job that the dark money is going to be a lot more interested in us, because I think for a long time we were sort of under the radar, and now we might not be.
Yeah, well, it's if there's one light shining in the darkness, that's the one they're going to try to snuff out. So we got our work cut out for us, especially here in New England. So we're coming to the end of it. Carla, I want to give you the opportunity for last word before I say goodbye to our audience tonight.
All right. I hope to see everyone at the New Movers Friday night at the Quill on Armory Street in Manchester. I'm really excited for next year. So I hope patrons and people who support the Free State Project can feel that, understand the movement is, growing and blossoming, and support us and support Eric and his efforts, because he's doing a great job, which allows me to go and run off and start to do some of the other things that I've wanted to see materialize and transpire here. So I'm excited. I think 2026 is going to be amaze balls, and I hope everyone comes and joins us.
Awesome. Thank you, Carla. Thanks for joining me tonight.
Thanks.
All right, everyone, that's the show. A few final reminders. Go to the fsp.org, check out the community calendar, see all the events that are going on. Would love to see you at a few of them. And while you're there, become a patron for the Free State Project. Look, we are approaching the end of the year. This is nonprofit fundraising season. It's fully tax deductible, and your dollars go to support the most effective libertarian strategy ever implemented. So please go to fsp.org/give, become a patron. We need 15 more patrons by the end of the year. And we also need, some dollars behind that to fund our operations. We are a small bootstrap operation. I want to emphasize that. We've got one full-time employee, it's me. We've got a few part-time contractors who help out with things ranging from our video production to our social media to our design and IT. And all of these things do cost dollars, but you get to donate those dollars and it's tax deductible. And we even take Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. You can find all of that more and more at fsp.org/give. Finally, I do want to mention, two other developments. One, I'm publishing a book, and it's actually, we just hit publish on it the other day. We're going through final things of publishing it through Amazon. It's called The Liberty Candidate's Practical Guide to Door Knocking, and it's a synthesis of my entire door knocking system that I developed over my 10 years in Maine politics, kind of something I want to be able to give to other candidates who are trying to advance liberty. And so that's going to be published soon, and it'll be available on Amazon, and all proceeds will go to support the Free State Project. So be sure to check that out. I'll let you know when it's available, but that's coming up very, very shortly. And finally, I just did want to say a final note, because people are asking me all the time, what is going on with PorcFest? Well, first of all, of course, PorcFest is down the road, and we are focused right now on the New Hampshire Liberty Forum, and you should get your tickets for that at nhlibertyforum.com. But PorcFest, I'll just give you an update. I'm sorry, the sad news is that there is no new news. We announced a while back that we were kind of... we had some conversations, after a very successful 22nd annual PorcFest, where we welcomed Ross Ulbricht, finally free after the PorcFest community for 10 years had advocated for his release and his freedom. We had a very successful 22nd year of PorcFest this year. And then, there were some conversations with ownership of our longtime venue, Rogers Campground. And ultimately, it looks like we're not going back there next year. We had some back and forth for a couple months, but it didn't result in anything productive. And at the same time, we've been looking for other venues, and we just haven't found the right spot yet. That still feels like if we were to do it there, it would be PorcFest. We're used to a certain degree of freedom at a freedom festival. And we also need a place that can have the kind of large numbers of people that we traditionally have. So we are still looking for alternate venues. I want to be upfront that what we land on might involve some aspects of PorcFest changing from what we're used to. It might be smaller. It might be more Burning Man style, where we have to bring in all of our own facilities. It might be, we're at the point where we're even talking about maybe it should be in Greater New Hampshire. Maybe there's parts of 2nd District, Maine, outside the current borders of New Hampshire where we could hold this. So anyway, I just share this to say we are still very much looking. We will have news for you to share as soon as there is news to share. And if you have any leads of potential venues or ideas or input for PorcFest for next summer, please feel free to contact us. Our lead producer, Jamie Hussey, who's been a guest on this program. She's currently helping to lead our search, and you can email her at Jamie, Jaime, @fsp.org. Please feel free to email her or to message me directly. So that's the update on PorcFest. Everyone keeps asking me, so that's where it is. So thank you everyone for tuning in tonight to episode 91 of the Porcupine Report. Become a patron. Oh, there's that patron pin. Become a patron, sign up for the newsletter, check out the calendar, all the rest. And furthermore, my opinion is the Federal Reserve should be destroyed.